July 2016. July 3rd, 2016. We went to the fabric store. On the way out, Nadia saw that there was blackberries on the side of the exit. She went out and picked some. She got back in the car and handed me one. It was covered in spiders. July 6, 2016. Things to work on before getting too ill. The truth machine, the longevity suit, the LPT generator, the gut prediction algorithm schema device. First teach them not to lie, teach them to live a proper long life, give them the energy to do anything safely, teach them to predict their own future to better suit their needs. That's how you get the funding to build the automated soup kitchens. You guys realize I'm a mirror, right? It's not the right word for it, but it's the closest thing I can think of. You can break the world into a game board and the people into piece types of routines of possible actions, taking none from previous actions. It's definitely a form of the grand unified theory. The issue with the truth machine is that different languages have different inflections that I have no idea on how to work with personally. July 6, 2016. The probability of any action at any time in any location's parameters are as follows. P of action in set is happening times P of action's duration of event times P of action's geographic location times P of emotional responsive actions compounded if emotional value is the same value as previous chained events. P of did the action happen bracket 1 minus no / yes, no equals 1, yes equals 0. Every action needs to be yes, no, able. So the parameter of did this happen, yes, no needs to zero the value out, or yes multiplies it by 1. So the function is 1 minus no / yes, where no is 1 and yes is 0. So it becomes a multiplication of that function, because if it's no, it zeroes the function out, effectively removing it from the chain. No, that's not right. It can't zero out the link because it nullifies the chain, which is actually what we want, because the nullified probability removes itself out of the total equation because you're multiplying an action to another action. But that probability only works if all those actions happen, and when it nullifies the function, it resolves that those items didn't happen, which is useful because you have to determine all possible actions, then remove the combinations of actions that didn't or aren't likely to take place. Probability of an action. First, you must break actions throughout a day into action sets, items that are determined within a set time frame from a set number of actions, i.e. morning actions would be wake up, bathe, use the bathroom, eat, dopamine interactions, chores, A minus X. Those are the things that would happen before getting in the car to go to work. There are two types of interaction, personal and interpersonal. They both use the same structure parameters because all actions do. The emotional possibilities for a person experiencing the event are positive / positive, positive / negative, negative / negative, negative / positive, where an event is either increasing the emotional value positively or negating it negatively, or continuing the trend of previous events by staying positive or negative. It's a compounded function because if the previous event was negative, it throws weight behind the probability of the next event being perceived as negative as well, or at least the chances of being received negatively is openly increased. It's the compounded value of all previous actions in the chain multiplied by the probability of the new action being taken. There are two ways to split geography, globally into square units so the planet can be mapped out properly as a game board, and the person's units can be broken down to total units traveled in a time period, as well as possible moves along the board given known trajectories, travel periods, and possible movements within the game board based on the action taken. You need to break the board into square units to map the pieces properly and to give the probability of hitting each unit being equal, but giving weight to certain travel pathways based on movements beforehand. It also means as one parameter changes, like from one location to another, the action itself grows another link even though the action itself is the same. It means you regulate the units for any parameter in basic unit types like meters, miles, inches, seconds, or minutes. Though it's probably better to streamline the parameters and send units into a single standardized size. The smallest unit possible that can be combined can also be used singularly. Though if you were to use percentages of the unit, like 50% of a second, it becomes a sliding scale duration as well. There needs to be a blank additional value added geographically to allow for shift in units as the Earth changes shape, while allowing the units to remain uniform if those changes do occur. Action sets need to be categorized into time periods and types of movement. Possible and eventual would be useful: eating, sleeping, traveling, work, exercise, play, maintenance, morning, breakfast, travel, mid-morning, lunch, mid-afternoon, travel, dinner, dopamine, sleep. Interpersonal actions can be broken into relationship types: work, friendship, familial, or acquaintances. It would be exhaustive to list every possible action possible, so it would be better to break them into routines of known quantities like Jungian types of action sets and add in auxiliary sets based on known factors such as buying and entertainment habits to produce clear archetypal characters. Bare bones would be all inevitable action types: sleep, eat, bathroom, die. Determine the types of routines the average person uses. Write tables with current actions taken. Give a numerical value to be interpreted. The goal of each parameter's function is to determine the chances of each action. Weigh the chances of each action to weigh future actions accordingly. So you need to figure out each type of person possible. There must be general cases of personality type, which can be nuanced to fit the slightly varying types of action they would take. People can be broken down into 3 types: less than, average, more than. So they need values. -1, 1, 3 might work. The problem is that every value combination has to be unique, or does it? So adding values of pi instead might be useful, since any addition of the terms as the character results in a singular new number. But what about times when 2 other numbers add together to be the same value? Does it matter if that happens? Only if you rely on them to be unique answers. Instead, it would be better to group like combinations as results of the same type so they mean the same thing when they appear, and that gives you the ability to designate outliers with specific numbers. So let's break the types down further. Eating: once per day, more than once per day, but also twice per day, thrice per day, and more than that. Sleep: once per day, more than once per day, less than once per day. Bathroom: once per day, more than once per day, less than once per day. Combined action sets: actions taken that can include other actions should be designated as singular new actions. Going to the bathroom and using their cell phone becomes using their cell phone while in the bathroom a new action. Dopamine: once per day, more than once per day, often, constantly, almost, rarely, or never not used at all that day. So bare bones types are sleep once, eat once. Is it worth predefining archetypes or teaching a machine to learn types if given information from a consistent source? Cell phones can track travel, eating, bathing, sleeping, and dopamine habits. Giving a machine the points of reference and having it learn the connections between the points of a time span would be more efficient. It then becomes the task of quantifying actions, which is simply performing the actions being true. If it were a linguistic style, it would be if true verb action for duration at location with feeling. To combine them, it would be action of multiplication, given that all actions are the result of groups preceding actions having taken place. Adding probabilities is useful when running a function to determine if action A and action B and action C are possible. Oh wait, it's useful for determining the value of the probability of an item in an item set when multiple outcomes are possible. It's the counteraction function that'll use that. It'll need to add the nullified probabilities to determine the rate of change outside of the function's scope. So we see with probability of pos/pots/ and pos/pos has the same rate as chances pos/pos and pos/neg. It'll be used to streamline the data lost to being nullified in a single value. The sum of all actions taken in the past of all those events happening in order is the sum of the multiplied probabilities of a link because they're viewed as independent and outside of themselves, but not when viewed in a routine. The negative compound function. The parameter of emotional value has to be one of the 4 possible outcomes to the preceding link values. Brackets E.V. capital C equals 0 plus brackets 1 of 4 end bracket plus times B plus times A, where the preceding values are the combined values of all links in the chain beforehand. Pos/pos colon 1/5, pos/neg colon negative 1/7, neg/pos colon 1/13th, neg/neg colon negative 1/17. Make them prime fractions. Adding prime fractions makes unique numbers that can't be replicated. If it's tending negatively, we know it's an emotional negative weighted movement as it moves towards -1. As it moves towards 0 plus, then we know it's a positive movement. It also lets us watch the direction of the chain from any set of links within the chain. So how do you determine if the emotional value is positive or negative? It depends. Enjoyment invigorates the body and mind. More gets done faster. Negativity slows the number of items completed or increases the duration of set of items being completed. Quantifying stress, which is why it's a compounding function. You need the information from the actions beforehand to determine its movement towards one pole or another. Wait, there are two functions you need to know. The addition of the emotional values, but you're looking for the probability of the action taking place, so it's multiplication. But you need the additions for something. You add them together to get the movement towards the pole. You multiply them to get the chance of those events happening in said order. Geographical parameters have the same two functions, one to determine the likely direction based on past directions, the other to determine the chance of those actions taking place. North, 1/19th. Northeast, 1/23rd. East, 1/31st. Southeast, 1/37th. South, 1/41st. Southwest, 1/53rd. West, 1/67th. Northwest, 1/79th. You could break it into four terms. Northwest is the positive form of southeast. It is easier to work with only positive values, yes, but it takes up more space overall. But it's also faster because it's only performing one operator function versus two. Does every parameter need a yes-no able function? Because any parameter can zero out the link, except geography. If the same action takes place at the same location, then you add two terms of duration. Though there's no need to do that. It's just a static value. So how would you determine the value of someone slowing down? It would be its own event. At rest, acceleration, deceleration. The trick is going to be determine the action sets for any possible duration and being able to successfully infer the duration based on examples of past events of the same value taking place, while also being able to learn how to determine the initial value of the duration of an event as well, so that it can build a ground layer to work with. So people must have a rubber banding effect of time as events take place, which you do by using known locations. Durations of actions in a given second determine the durations of any action within the chain. It needs to learn to guess, study, and reconcile its mistakes. It's a learning algorithm. How do you get access to people's GPS data from the cell towers? Build a squid, packet inceptor. The Pi can do that. If you can determine the location and duration of location of an item, you can estimate the actions possible at that location and use the rate of travel between the locations as if those actions are positive or negative. July 7th, 2016. The first time it happened, I had been dead for 12 hours. Her name was Jay Kukowski. She was a 24-year-old schizophrenic that thought I was talking to her through my music. Her note said she wanted to make sure that the only voice that made her feel better would keep making others feel good too. They found her 2 weeks after the fact, sitting in her bathtub with the remains of a smile on her face. It's not something you get used to. The idea that these people had nothing better to offer the populace than to keep their gilded lilies living continually to dance and sing for them. That often enough no one would do the same for them. Their finality is not lost on you. I started recording their names down every time it happened, and the information made it back to me. The other two were Jacob Snilly and Amanda German. After that, I stopped trying. There were over 5 million fans worldwide the last time I counted. They would just keep bringing me back. I couldn't escape my life. I was going to have to keep going until I became obscure enough that I outlived my fan base or destroy my body far enough it couldn't be reconstituted. They didn't mention that part. The damage you do in the act carries over to the next life. The scars from my slit wrist took months to heal. Lucky the surgeons had gotten remarkably good at reconnecting muscle in those areas, and I didn't lose much of my hand's mobility. Not that I needed it to sing. The second time it was with pills. That was 5 years after Jay. I thought I had waited long enough, but the acolytes stay faithful for decades at a time. At least after the swelling went down, I was able to get back on tour. The band pretended nothing had happened, but you can tell when someone else is saying you murdered them with their eyes. They go cold the first time it happens. They stop enjoying seeing you up there. Jeff, the bassist, stopped being friendly altogether. They're just kids, and you're killing them with your selfishness. He had a point. After the third attempt at hanging over my streaming account, I was dead for less than 5 minutes before Amanda killed herself. She didn't leave a note other than to reply in my chat room that she was coming. It's surreal waking up dangling from your ceiling. 20 minutes of this and the cops finally arrived to cut me down. I had the audacity to thank them on air. I created a small mural for the kids that left for me. I cited Amanda's name to the piece that hung over my bed frame. I can't do it again or I'll be classified as a suicide serialist, and it's terrible for your brand. Among the more concerned listeners, they decided that if it happened a few times, it wasn't your fault. How are you going to be blamed for what mentally ill people do, right? When you hit number 5, they just assume that you were doing it for attention, and that's when most people would admit that they had a problem and get some help. Some of the more twisted would see how high of a score they could get. Some of the more known Instagrammers would keep a running tally of attempts, videographing their suicides and seeing how often people would offer themselves for the continued success of the channel's participants. It became a pandemic. Eventually they had to pass a law where you got jail time for a higher number of kills. The lawyers and judges decided that if you were willing to kill off 100 people or more, you shouldn't be allowed to abuse the privilege, and those people were put in solitary confinement to be executed privately. They would dissect the person and burn the pieces off in cars of acid. The horror stories that came out of the half-alive pieces kicking and thumping their end became the story for a blockbuster movie. So is life, I suppose. July 10th, 2016. The certainty principle. How many times must a prediction be true to be considered certain? It's dependent on how many chances are given in a row and how often of those chances, given the useful data of yes, it did happen, occur. In tenth percentiles. 0. It may happen. 1. It's happened once. It may happen again. 2. It's happened twice. 3 to 5. It's starting to become a trend. 6 to 7. It's becoming a dominant trend. 8 to 9. It's almost certainly going to happen. 9.1 to 9.79. It damn near is going to happen. 9.8 put 9.99. It's going to become a logical certainty. So you group actions into their percentiles of executed reality. Every time an item occurs in the group, it is given a percentile weight out of the number of actions taken in total in the set, as well as how often this particular action is completed. The numbers are useful for different things. By grouping the weights, you get items according to probability of happening, letting you close out non-used items more efficiently than if you were to not group them while allowing them all to be documented if they do occur. So you need at least 3 terms for probability manipulation: an increase in probability, a decrease in probability, and a steadying of probability. Though in all terms the act of completing the action either increases or decreases its probability by a percentage. You can make it even simpler by just making them addition functions so that the larger probabilities are recorded and the smaller probabilities happen. They'd increase in their own function, but if the total weight of the term is less than the total weight of the leading term, then it wouldn't affect the probability of the action known to being monitored. Bracket. Previous total probability of action, bracket, plus, bracket, new action completed, yes, / total number of times actions completed, bracket. That way you would run sets of actions in a given order, and if they completed the set, would be given a value increase, but at the same time you would give a value increase to all the items contained within the set to determine that when outliers happen, the item wouldn't break the weight of the chain, instead dynamically changing as the item set's modified. A change in behavior would determine a new action set, but the new set would be given a starting weight because it would technically be a new class of a known item set, which would have to be computed against the other preceding sets. It would let you make known any and all changes to the unit's actions while still being able to account for said changes without having to rewrite the formula. So it's a class hierarchy. So the prediction algorithm can be coded with basically anything. Then it's machine learning to determine the winners, then build your daily archetypes, then it's compound them against one another, then add in what you can from known quantities. I think I could build it on an Arduino. Once it learns to predict, it can learn to learn properly. Robotic brain. P dot of class 1, comma, minus P dot of class 2 over sum of all classes determines chance of class happening at all. July 12th, 2016. I'm not sure what I should be working on. My head feels stuffed with marshmallows and static at the same time, and I'm getting antsy sitting in my house, which is probably good as it means I'm getting back to normal and wanting to be around people again. As long as I'm not seeing the blinking all the time or hearing the lights click, I may be able to get better. I have to get better. I can't stand this way of living. It's just wasteful and timid. Nedio's business will be good for it. I won't screw it up for her. I hope it takes off. We need the money and the good fortune this time. Why would someone call your number just to leave a message with "hello" spaced out in the message itself? It's S like that causing issues. The narcissistic delusions are annoying and have done a great job at removing the semblance of life I had before getting ill. It must be possible to get back to normal, though. Psychosis is a slow increase, slow degrade sort of illness, and I'm getting antsy and bored in my house. It must mean that I'm getting better at wanting to be around people. If I had the money for drinks, I would go to different coffee shops and be around people. Maybe I can do that anyway when Nadia fills her car again. We're so close to the edge of not being in a good place again. Why couldn't I just stay at my job? Maybe I can find a retail job or something. I'm making the dogs nutty by not going outside with them. We have to learn to walk them or they'll be unhealthy screwballs. Television has gotten boring again, and I need to find something to do with my time and my mind to take my mind off what I'm not doing, which is being an adult. I don't want to keep being babysat for the next 20 years. What should I be working on? Where can I go to make some friends and put this period behind me so Nedios and I can have a happy, eventful life? The answer is find a way to make some money. Do something that makes money. Maybe art isn't it anymore. You've gotten so lazy, dude. So timid and lazy. The only reason you didn't finish anything is because you don't want the attention from doing something well. You've always been like that. I wonder if this lump is cancerous. July 12th, 2016. How to break any item into an actionable set. You have to determine whether overarching actions like flying in the plane trump actions taken while inside the plane, or if it's better to create 3 types of correlations. He flew, his actions during the flight, his actions while flying. They would be sitting, standing, sleeping, eating, talking, using the bathroom, flying the plane, stewarding, serving drinks, foodstuffs, offering assistance as needed, working, entertainment use. So, with that as an example, you would prefer the actions while overarching actions take place. It lets you quantify the overarching actions themselves, or breaking those actions into a smaller class of sub-actions that still fit to the actionable item equation. I suppose it would be useful at all times to be more involved in their action sets, more complete complex data to work with. So it's X people sitting, which at one point it's all the people, Y people standing, Z people heading to the bathroom, minus Z people heading from the bathroom, W people serving, V people eating, Q people sleeping, O people working, P people being entertained, R people unpacking from overhead bins, S people stretching, minus R minus S going back to their seats, U people waiting for bathroom, B using bathroom, period, washing hands, using bathroom, changing clothes. They need to be combinable because people sleep with the entertainment on. So it's percentages of total people plus singularly people interacting because their actions can affect those around them. So they're grids of the whole plus grids of influence. July 15th, 2016. L. Do something. M. I don't wanna. L. Anything. Just do something. M. Like what? L. The paranoia isn't so bad today. You could go outside. M. Go where? L. It doesn't matter. The park, the library, hell, even the backyard would be an improvement. M. Fine. July 18th, 2016. Maybe your job is to tell a story. You could create on from the crazy stuff going on in your head and write that into something interesting to read about. The delusions could be plot points while you figure out the story pages. If you could get 4 to 6 pages done per day, you'll be able to put out a book every year. Meditate on what to write about and then see if anything sticks. Maybe come up with the plot for the story before starting in on the details, or you could freeform it and see what happens. The goal of this year is to get something started and finished. You may be trying to get on disability, but it doesn't mean you'll have to do nothing with your life. And if you can get well enough to finish something, it means you can get well enough to start something new. Your problem is that you don't finish what you start, but the only way to fix that detriment is to start something, then finish it, and call it done.